we have a session on a woman's journey to self-discovery and transform fear into freedom for gender equality by Ms. Fauza Beltz. Ms. Fauza Beltz is an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, mentor, and founder of Fauza Consultancy Limited. She is the author of Rising from the Dust, A Woman's Journey to Self-Discovery and Transform Fear into Freedom, Harness the Power of Your Mind. Fauza is passionate about youth development and supporting communities. She is devoted to helping young men and women make a lasting change and live their best life. Her creative streak and passion for all things art led to Fauza Consultancy Limited, initially a blog documenting her interior design creations, jewelry collection, and her love for fashion. Fauza Consultancy has grown to include interior design guidance, branding, mentoring, publishing, and events organization. She is a qualified interior designer from the Center of Executive Education, CEE, Dubai, EdExcel UK. Fauza has used her status as an accomplished jewelry designer to endorse African women develop their craft through sales on her website, fauzabeltz.com. In 2019, she founded Fauza Foundation, registered in Kenya, aimed at empowering young men and women through inspirational school talks, mentoring programs, and providing female hygiene products. As an influential Kenyan woman, she is often an invited guest on television shows. She is also the host of Fauza Diaries, a digital talk show that offers authentic and insightful take on unconventional conversations. Thank you so much, Ms. Fauza, for joining us today. Over to you for your session.
Thank you so much, Ms. Apana, and my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Santosh as well for giving this girl, a girl just from the next door, an opportunity to share her story. I love telling stories, and that's what I am going to do, because I'm just thankful when I get an opportunity to share. And even better, that the topic on this conference tonight, that has been going on for a little while now, that I just feel the topic it's something that I really care about, and it's a privilege and an honor to be able to share. So I'll tell you a story about a little girl who grew up in a small village in the coastal part of Kenya. Like many children born around the world who are planned for, where parents and extended family are looking forward to have this child, this girl did not fall in that category. In fact, her parents did not even know each other well. It's what we refer to nowadays as a one-night stand. She was unplanned for and not even expected. However, she appeared a few weeks later in her mother's womb. When the parents of her mother discovered that she was pregnant out of wedlock, which is a taboo where I come from, she was taken to the family of the father, who denied responsibility. The mother went back to her parents, gave birth to the girl, and after a few months, she left home and went and took her child with her to the big city in Mombasa. By then, 3 years later, the mother met another man, and this forced her to give the girl to her mother, where the girl stayed until she was about 8 years old. By then, the father had softened up and instructed her mom to come and get his child, his daughter. You can imagine the confusion going on this girl's mind. First, it was her mother letting her go, and now the grandmother is letting her go. Everything she knew was familiar has been taken away. This girl is none other than Fauza. The little girl who was neglected, abandoned, abused, both physically and emotionally, remained inside of me. She had problems loving herself, relating with people, and life, especially during the teenage years when I was trying to find my place in the society and in the community I lived in. A child, generally children who are born and have moved from home to home with different sets of adults to raise them up, these children grow up with no sense of belonging, and they start to tell themselves stories that are not true, like you are not good enough, you are not beautiful, you are not worthy, no one can love you, you are nothing. And at times, we do believe some of the labels that we've been labeled and those that we have actually identified with ourselves. A few years back, I read a book by a lady named Louise Hay called You Can Heal Your Life. In her book, Louise Hay says, if we are willing to do mental work, almost anything can be healed. It is after I read Louise Hay's book, I realized that I could heal all my traumas and love myself for who I am. At this point in my life, I was trying to reconcile with myself the reasons of my being and the reasons of my birth that caused family division. I had so many answered questions that led me to write Rising from the Dust, A Woman's Journey to Self-Discovery, and Transform Fear into Freedom, Harness the Power of Your Mind. I took this journey because I wanted to share my story and face my own past, which was, and sometimes even today, is still not easy as it has made me become vulnerable. After my book was published, the media, specifically in Kenya, approached me to share my story. It was not a common story. It created a lot of questions. It was not normal because it was a personal story. And so after my book was published, I started to receive messages from people in similar situations. In fact, there was a lady who wrote to me and she said, I've been listening to your stories and I feel like I'm watching my life story through your story. This and many other reasons, many messages led me to start my platform, Woman to Woman Conversation, a place where we bring real life stories from men and women and learn how they have overcome their own struggles. Because there is my mother's story, which is painful, that led to my painful story, that many women need to hear and find hope and share their own stories. This led me to the question, what if someone had talked to me in my teenage time? Would that have helped me? Would I have been able to handle the pain better? Would I have healed faster? Would my relationship towards myself be different? I think it would have helped. And therefore, I started visiting poorly equipped schools in my country in Kenya to give motivational talks, to encourage, to inspire, to motivate, and at times to counsel the young boys and girls, both in the rural areas and in the slums. I want to empower these teenagers to know and understand that they are powerful beyond measure. There is a higher power that is greater than themselves. It is for them and not against them. Their purpose here on earth is bigger than they can think or imagine. Look at my own story. As a teenage, I blamed myself. I hated myself. I was angry. I was confused. I had so many questions. I felt embarrassed of who I was. I carried shame around that was not even mine. But look where I am today. While interacting with the teenage boys and girls, I discovered other needs they had. Most of the girls, specifically in the slums, they lacked sanitary towels. So they would miss a few days of school every month because they are on their period. Things that most people having sanitary pads that we take sometimes for granted. This took me back to my own old days where I would use a piece of cloth, trying to keep the piece when I started my menstruation. Let me spare you the horrible stories of trying to keep the pieces of clean cloth in the evening, hiding them under my mattress. I had one of my friends specifically told me she used toilet paper and cotton wool. That is even better because you can throw them, unlike the pieces of cloth that you have to wash the blood. In 2019, there was a story in the news in Kenya. about a girl who committed suicide because a male teacher had made fun of her after her period leaked to her dress. Remember, this is the stage most of these girls are building their identity. I remember for myself, every time that time of the month came, I was worried about the same leak. So before I would stand up in my class, I would ask the girl seated next to me to check my skirt. And most African girls did and still do just to avoid the same shame. You can imagine the trauma this girl went through to the point of taking her own life. This and many similar stories I hear from the boys and girls I talk to led me to start Fauza Foundation, which is aimed at empowering young men and women through motivational talks in schools, donation of sanitary pads, school fees, as well as school amenities. Through this foundation and other well-wishers like yourselves here on this call, we have managed to support at least 4,000 girls, and we have a few girls who are our beneficiaries every month through our sanitation program. Sharing my story has taken me to places where I have seen poverty, boys and girls struggling that now I cannot unsee. And that is the reason the foundation exists, and it is open to partnership with anyone or organization that will support the girls and boys from the rural and the slum areas. It's through my life journey that started as unplanned through two unloving people who did not even know each other, that I have come to understand that each human being is important. It doesn't matter where you started. Each one of us has a role to play in our global community to be able to create the change that we want to see. It's not always just enough that we point to our government, our leaders, to solve the problems in our local communities. When each one of us can hold hand and just do the next thing, we will see that things will slowly start to move. Martin Luther King said, "Not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. When you change someone's life, you're not only changing their life, but the lives of an entire community." As we are here tonight, we are talking about SDG 5, achieving gender equality and empower all women and girls. And I would say for my end, the young men as well, I would include them because I deal with them as well. Having heard my story, what kind of change are you doing? Are you going to make in someone else's life to improve their situation? You see, it's not just enough that we talk about these issues, but it's even crucial that we act. I want to challenge all of us here on this call and those that are watching on the global community online. I want to challenge each one of us that we fully make education gender sensitive. There has been much progress to education, but the progress has been slow, especially to the women and men, the young girls and boys in the rural areas, in the slums, who have no access to good computers, good technologies, which we don't have in some areas. We can't just ignore the fact that every child deserves a good education. Although there has been progress to education, but it's still very slow. And improving the gender sensitivity of education system can solve some of the issues that we are speaking about tonight. We also need to give our young women and young men role models, people that they can look up to, that they can expand their dreams. Because living in those remote areas, it's so easy when things don't go the way we think to lose hope in life. So we here and those who are watching, we need to stand and pick one person and be their mentor. We need also to empower mothers in the rural areas, in the slums. Some of those women, they never stepped in a class. So it's our role that we stand and empower other women, especially for us women, that we educate and empower them to make choices in their lives that they enable their daughters to go to school. Because when you give a child, if you give a daughter an education, you are giving them a gift for the rest of their life. We also need to get more women into power. There has been a bit of improvement, but I think women, we need to step up, because a proven way to overcome many systemic barriers to a woman's success has been increased in participation by women in local and regional and as well national legislations. And lastly, we need to give proper value to women's work. I love what Ms. Gita spoke a bit about that as well. I also would like to emphasize on that, because the unpaid work women and girls, they do provide the foundation for the global economy. So we need to give women more opportunities. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fauza, for that powerful and inspiring session. I was in tears when I heard your story, and this is not just your story. This is the story of all of us. Maybe not, if not in the same way, but in another way. We all have gone through pain, and that's why we have come together and trying to create this change. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And as you said, sharing our stories brings us together. Let's together create the change we want to see in the world. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Next.